Welcome to Flourish-Meant, the podcast on living life as you are meant to, so you can flourish. Welcome, everyone. Today I have with me Leslie Jackson, who is a dirt track race car driver, a motorcyclist, and an author. She has learned to embrace her own adversity and challenges and has turned them in her life into learning experiences that have molded her into becoming a better person. She's here to talk to us today about how to embrace your adversity toward living an adventure. Welcome, Leslie. I'm so glad you're here on Flourish-Meant today.
Thank you, Tina. I was delighted to meet you in person in Tampa, Florida, and now be on your podcast. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a thrill to have a race car driver. That is new for me. I am so excited to hear what you have to say. Tell us what in your background, in your life story, helped you to become passionate about leading people from adversity to embracing the adventure in their lives.
Well, first of all, I have to thank my mother, of course, because she's a wonderful woman and she brought me up in the Christian faith. She was always a follower of Jesus and definitely showed me the way on how to be a Christian and always brought me to church. And so I had a good background. Not that I was a perfect girl. I was far from that. And I go into that a lot in my book. But when I was younger, I had a rare skin disease, and then my brother was killed in a car accident, and I became pregnant at age 17, and I had some divorces. So I have had a lot of adversity in my life, but God always showed me a way out and through that adversity. And then God recently called me to write a story about everything I've been through so that I can tell other people that they're not alone. We all have adversity. And so that's why I'm really excited about it, is because God is telling me to do this. So of course, whenever God tells us to do something, it is very exciting.
It is exciting, and it's probably already fraught with adversity, just stepping out into that place of ministry for you.
Yes, I've had many sleepless nights, and my skin I've always, like I said, had skin issues. And so my skin, I think the stress kind of comes through in my skin. So yeah, my skin has not been the happiest lately, because this is a very new adventure for me. I'm definitely not a writer in the slightest, like you mentioned earlier. I'm more of a race car driver and motorcyclist. So I'm definitely stepping out of my comfort zone, but I have to say that God led me the entire time I wrote my book. It was actually easy to write the book. It's kind of weird to say that because I'm not a writer, but he gave me the words, and he would show me in the Bible what to read to encourage me. So it has been an amazing journey, but yes, there's also been some times that kind of scary too, but God's always been on my side, so I'm very blessed with that.
Tell us, back when you first experienced God meeting you in a place of adversity, what that looked like, how you reached out, and how he came to be there and be present with you to give you hope.
Like I said, I have to say my mom, he definitely has worked through my mom. I mean, my mom is an amazing woman. She's now in a nursing home with dementia, but she still inspires me with her relationship with God. She has always been very close, and she has a really strong connection. So I said I was raised that way, and she gave me a Bible at a very young age that had a prayer in the inside, and we would read that together. And so I was brought up in that. So I have to say that through her, and then confirmation was a big step for me too, and confirming that, yes, my mom brought me up in the faith, but as a Christian, as a young adult, I was confirming that I did indeed believe that Jesus was our Savior. And then just throughout my life, he's always been there for me. I've had a lot of challenges, like I mentioned earlier. And then as I became older, actually God healed me twice in two amazing events where a ball of light came and healed me. So just throughout my entire life, he has been with me, and I'm just in love with him.
That's amazing. What a tremendous testimony you have to share. Tell us some of the things that you did to move forward when life was so scary?
Well, when I was really young, like I said, I had a rare skin disease. So, I mean, starting at age 2. So, I mean, this is basically the majority of my life I've had skin issues. But when I was very, very young, I was diagnosed with a rare skin disease called urticaria pigmentosa, which basically means you look like a leopard, but not with black spots, but with red spots. So my entire body was covered in spots. So I looked very, very strange. But like I said, my mom was always a very strong Christian. And so when I was young, she loved me no matter what. I mean, I looked very, very strange. People teased me and they didn't want their children to play with me because I looked so odd. They thought I was contagious. But my mom, like I said, she was such a strong believer, and she showed others how to live a life. And she definitely showed that to me by giving me so much love, even though some people maybe wouldn't want a child that looked like that, but she showed me love from the beginning. And when other parents were scared to have their children play with me, she would calmly go up to them and explain the situation and help out. So like I said, I think God really worked through her in order to nurture me, because I was such a strange sight. I mean, I looked very, very strange, but otherwise I was very healthy. So I'm very thankful for that. But that early on, God just, I feel like he worked through mom to help me. And yes, those times were difficult, but they actually strengthened me into become a stronger person. I didn't curl up in a ball and hide in the corner. I went out and I still, even though people were staring at me, I would still just go about whatever I felt I needed to do. And it helped me become a better, stronger person. But like I said, I think my mom just gave me such a wonderful, strong foundation.
So you chose to stand on a foundation of identity that was grounded in unconditional acceptance, the way God accepts you, not what other people would say about you or fear about you or do to push you away or put you down. And the second thing it sounds like you're saying that you did was you chose to step out in faith and in that identity anyway, even when there was adversity. You chose to move forward with your life instead of becoming a victim.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate how you said that. That was so true that I did. I didn't want to be a victim. Like I said, I had such a good, strong Christian foundation that it did give me the strength to go out into the world and do what God had me to do. I mean, he has I have a purpose in life as well as everybody else. And I'm just so thankful that my mom was able to be there for me. But like I said, she is definitely so grounded in the faith of Jesus Christ. And without that, I don't know where I would be today. So it's very, very appreciated that all that God has done through my mother for me.
So, what would be some tips that you would offer to someone who's in that place where they're afraid, they're facing adversity, and they might not have the kind of foundation that you had? Maybe they don't understand how to embrace that adversity toward adventure. What are some ways they can move forward?
Well, I definitely like to tell people to be resilient. There's always going to be adversity in your life. I as well, continue to have adversity all the time. That's not going to go away. But I encourage people to be resilient, be flexible. Yes, you're going to have what you feel maybe a setback, but it's really not a setback. It's setting you up for something better in the future. So I encourage people to embrace whatever is going on in their life and really learn from what's going on, and then become stronger because of it, and then step out in faith that you can complete whatever the purpose is. You are here for a reason. Everybody's here for a reason. So I don't want anybody to shrink back just because they're different, but to be resilient and become stronger because of everything that they've endured. That's one thing. And then acceptance. I really want people to accept the situation. Yes, I had spots and I looked very, very strange, but you know what? That's just the way it is. And so accept where you're at. And like I said, learn from where you're at. And how can you become stronger because of it? Everybody's unique for a reason. If everybody was the same, the world wouldn't work. I mean, we have to all have different strengths that we bring to the table. And so I tell everybody to accept where you're at. Don't have self-doubt. Don't self-sabotage yourself and say, no, I'm not worthy. I can't do it. No, you are worthy. You are here for a reason. And then I also encourage people to have courage. Be courageous and step out. Even though it is a little bit scary, if on your heart you feel you are called to do something, do it. Pray about it ahead of time if you're not sure, because maybe sometimes it's not the right answer. But I do encourage people to pray, and then if they feel that's where they're called to be, then have courage to step out and begin that new journey. And then also energy is another thing that I feel is very important. You have to take care of your body in order to have the energy to do your purpose. It does take a lot of energy to fulfill your obligations in life. We're here for a purpose, like I said. And so I encourage people to take care of their body so that they do have that energy to fulfill their purpose. Whenever I feel sick, I just lay in bed and don't do anything. So obviously that's not the way to go. So I do encourage people to take care of the temple that God gave them. We're a wonderful masterpiece, no matter what we look like. And I want people to know that they are worthy and to take care of what God has given them.
Those are some amazing tips. I want to unpack some of those a little bit and talk about those slowly. I know that we went over and over the idea of embracing where you are rather than being a victim and learning from it. That's a really important piece, to look for what is the opportunity to learn in that place of adversity. How can I make this into a purpose and a message? That would take prayer to start with, because normally our human reaction is not to look for a benefit from a problem. And that is a totally different mindset that we have to really intentionally shift toward, don't you think?
Right. I mean, I can give an example of when I owned a boutique called Pink Moose Boutique. It was my life dream to have this boutique. I really was passionate about having the boutique, but I also owned a roofing company at the same time, and I still do own that roofing company. And the boutique was just a really fun thing that I felt called to do. And I did it, and it was wonderful. But then I had issues with employees quitting, and then my manager quit, and it just took so much time away from my roofing career. And eventually I decided I had to close that. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to pray about it. You feel that you're supposed to go in a certain direction, but then things change and you need to shift gears and do something different. And so I like I said, I mean, I've had adversity too. And, you never know when you think you're going the right direction, but sometimes, you know what, you just need to learn from that situation and then move on, change course, do something different.
There's a point at which lamenting your situation no longer becomes productive. We always want to look back and see how we could have done things differently, but then sometimes you need to recognize that the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason, right?
I love that. Yes, good analogy for sure.
And then as we're moving forward, you also are talking about prayer as having God lead you to have that kind of courage you need to take those steps forward. Not everyone is naturally courageous. I think most of us are more trending in the direction of being fearful and anxious. How would you advise someone who tends to be risk averse toward becoming more a person of courage? Have you experienced fear and overcome it, or are you just naturally brave?
I am maybe perhaps a little bit braver than some, but no, I definitely have fear as well. I mean, to speak about my racing a little bit, I've been racing for 7 years, but the very first race I was in, I was terrified. I had no idea what to do. I mean, I was out on the racetrack in a car that I borrowed from somebody else. So it wasn't my car. I was not familiar with it. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was at the very end of all of the cars, and they were going so fast. They were whizzing past me, and I was going very, very, very slow. They were going, they call it lapped. I was going so slow, they were lapping me multiple times because I was just going so slow. I thought that the car was going to tip over. I didn't know what to do. So the very first race, it was very scary. But as I continued, I gained courage. So I want to encourage people, yes, the very first time is very scary. And you may look a little silly because, like I said, people were lapping me and driving extremely fast past me as I was cautiously driving. But you know what? That's okay. That's how you learn. So I'm not always fearless. I mean, I definitely have my times where I'm scared as well, but I do encourage you to step out and give it a try anyways and see if it feels right, because even some people that look like they have it all figured out, you know what? We can just put a smile on our face even if we're a little bit scared.
What I love about your story is that you're looking at the finish line for God to give you that win, that acceptance, that sense of victory. You're not looking at the crowd around you to give that to you. You learned this growing up, and I think a lot of us miss that lesson, that important idea that you have to not focus on what other people are saying or what they think you're going to do or how well they expect you to accomplish your goals or whether they think you're equipped or not. You have to focus on what God says you can do with his power and who God says you are. And I think that's part of what gives you courage.
I think you're right that, and maybe that's kind of from way back when I was young, is because I did have this rare skin disease. I could not depend on other people for acceptance because I was not accepted. And you know what? So maybe that's, I hadn't really thought about until you brought that up. Maybe that's really where I gained my strength, is because I have never depended on other people for acceptance, other than, perhaps my mother, because she loved me no matter what. But because I never did look to friends for acceptance, because I didn't have very many friends when I was young. In my neighborhood, I had a couple neighbors, that accepted me because they knew me from day one, and they just grew to know that I was okay and I wasn't contagious. But I never wanted to, make everybody in the class like me, because I just knew they didn't. I looked strange. And so because of my mom's Christian faith, I just knew that God loved me, she loved me, and I didn't worry about what the world thought about me.
And your life story in that way reflects that of our Savior and what he modeled for us, because he was so rejected by the norm, by the people who were the religious leaders, the people who were the in crowd did not accept him, but he did what his Father called him to do anyway, because that's who God said he was. And that's who God says we are. We are made in the image of God, and we are meant to pattern our lives after Christ. So that is what you're essentially doing. You're looking at him to tell you where to go. You're following the course that he has set before you and not getting distracted by the crowd. What do you think would happen in a race if someone who was driving got distracted by the crowd?
Oh, wow. That would be very bad, because when you are racing, you have to be laser focused on that track. The track is very rough. There's ditches everywhere. There's rocks. There's slippery areas. Plus, there's lots of cars everywhere. And then there's people that are there that are trying to keep you safe, that the flagmen. And if you have your eyes up to the right in the crowds, as you're driving past them, if you look off, turn to your right and look up at the crowd, you're going to take your eye off the course, and you'd very well could hit one of the flagmen, you could hit one of the cars, or you could get one of your tires into those really big ruts and then get a flat tire. So that would actually be very, very dangerous if you took your eye off of what's in front of you and tried to look to the crowd to, oh, gee, I wonder if they're smiling at me, or do they think I'm doing a great job? Yeah, that could be very detrimental if you thought the fans were more important than the people on the racetrack with you, because you have to keep your eye on what's in front of you when you're racing. So that's a great question.
I think it also follows in line with the scriptures about let's run the race before us and
Oh,
not get
yeah.
distracted, because we have such a powerful crowd of witnesses, not the witnesses in the crowd, but the witnesses in heaven that are already at the finish line ahead of us, that are cheering us to come meet them there. So that's who we keep in mind. We keep in mind the people that God has called to inspire us, to help us cheer on, not the people who are in the lanes beside us either. I mean, you can glance, but if you focus on them too, I think that would be dangerous, wouldn't it?
Yes, I mean, I definitely keep my eyes straight forward. I don't look to the sides other than, like I said, out of the corner of my eye, because if I want to change lanes, obviously I need to know if somebody's in the lane next to me. But yeah, your eyes are very far ahead. You need to, because there's turns. There are 4 turns. You get to go straight only twice, and then you have to turn 4 times. You have to be very cautious on what's coming up ahead of time. Do I have to get ready for my turn? Because you place yourself in different positions on the track depending if you're going into a turn or if you're coming out of a turn.
That's really interesting how your life is modeled into that race pattern as well, because so many times you also changed course in your life. Tell us a little bit about how that plays out in an analogy of how we can change course and move forward toward a finish line.
Right. So I kind of talked a little bit about the boutique where, it was an amazing experience, but it just wasn't meant to be. And so I did have to close that. But there's so many things that I learned from that situation. I learned customer service. I didn't really know anything about retail. It definitely helped a lot with the financial aspects of how to run a company. So there's so much to learn from that situation that anytime you have something that maybe doesn't quite turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out, just look back and appreciate what you've accomplished. I mean, because I did accomplish a lot too. So celebrate the small things. I set up the store and I had all of these great customers and I learned so many things and I made a lot of great relationships. So just celebrate all of the accomplishments that you made along the way. And so maybe the outcome wasn't exactly what you thought it was going to be. You actually learned a lot. And same with racing too. It took me 2 years to win first place. I had to do lots of practice before I won first place. I mean, a lot of people could maybe get discouraged because their first season they don't win, or their first year in business they're in the red. But what did you learn that first year, And then the second year, I didn't, win it right away. It took a long time. Like I said, it took 2 years before I won.
And then when you won, how was that different than if you had won right away?
That's a good question. I think the resiliency probably, and I wouldn't appreciate it as much either, and I wouldn't work as hard. Now, I actually changed cars recently, and so I know it took me 2 years to win first place previously. So now I know with my new car, okay, it may take me 2 years before I win. So it gives you that strength of knowledge and wisdom. So I would say it gives you so much wisdom and courage and say, I know where I've been in the past. I can pull on that strength and knowledge of the past, and it will help me for the future. And like I said, I know I have a long road ahead of me with this brand new car, and I don't expect myself to win right away. But what if last time in my old car, I won instantly the first race? Well, I would be so disappointed now with my new car if I didn't win the first time. But now I know, okay, it's all right. Last time it took me 2 years. I will get there. So it actually probably works better if you don't win instantly, because it sets up unrealistic expectations for other situations.
And if you're only focused on the end result, would you miss the process and the things that happen in the process that are just as important to really, truly, deeply experience?
Right. I mean, like I said, I don't think you would gain the full understanding of what was going on if I had just raced and instantly, yep, I won. I wouldn't really analyze what's going on. And I know, like with football, they constantly look at tapes, what happened in this situation? What can I learn from this situation? Or Pam Borton, her book On Point is, it's something that I really appreciated, all of her knowledge that she put into that book. And yeah, there's so much more, your team players, how can you work together as a team? And just because you won that one game, that doesn't mean anything for the entire season. There's just so much more ahead of you.
We often tend to think about victory as a final end result. And yet, in the course of life, victory is not one and done. It's not one thing that we finish with at the end. There are victories along the way, and sometimes the process is a flux between how we experience adversity in a way that's victorious in our relationship with God. So I love that you are persevering around the track in a way that shows a victorious attitude toward living. And I think that's important for people to recognize. It's not just looking at when I finally get through this. It's also
Right.
determining how I'm going to get through this with God, which is the important and painful part of this
Yes.
process.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, and God will guide us if we go to him in prayer. And he wants us to align with him. So if I'm not sure what to do in a situation, I definitely will go to God in prayer. Yeah, if you find yourself in a place where you need to change course and do something different because it didn't quite turn out the way you thought it was going to be, I just really encourage everybody to go to God in prayer so that we can align ourselves with what his will is, because a lot of times we approach prayer as just kind of a shopping list, but I really want it to be more of a conversation with God, and thank him for everything that we have given. So even times that we think it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, if we look back, there's so many things we can be grateful for. So I just want to encourage people to be more going to God with gratitude rather than a shopping list.
That is so important. I love that insight of making your prayers relational. In the midst of adversity, we need that more than anything because he can strengthen us through it and give us the course shift directions that we need.
Right. He knows what's going on and he knows what we need. So he can definitely give us the right information to get us on the right path.
Do you have any final parting tips for people who are moving from adversity and trying to find direction to victory?
Yeah, I'd like to leave everybody with my final tip. I have this analogy of RACE, race, when I speak and encourage people. R speaks for resiliency, A, acceptance, C, courage, E, energy, and your health. And so I kind of talked a little bit about each one of those earlier on, but I want everybody to have hope and be resilient and accept their situation, have courage to step out and try something new if they really feel that God's putting it on their heart, and to take care of that body, give it lots of energy, that temple that everybody is honored with. And so again, RACE, and that's what I give everybody just kind of as a quick tip to kind of help you to step out and live out your purpose.
I love all of the amazing tips and the great inspiration from your personal story that you've shared today. I want everyone to be able to stay connected with you. So how can they follow you and get your book?
Yes, ladyracing.com is my website. So Lady Racing, of course, because I'm the Lady Racing. My new book, Change Course, One Lady's Race from Acceptance to Adventure, can be found on my website, ladyracing.com. So if you'd like to order it, I would be thrilled to have you do that, and just come to my website, ladyracing.com.
That's wonderful. I hope all of you listening will stay connected with Leslie Jackson on ladyracing.com for speaking and to get her book. And I also hope that you come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.